A 23-year-old woman vanishes from a cruise ship in the dead of night. No body, no trace, just gone. But what if I told you that 27 years later, someone has finally pieced together what really happened to Amy Bradley? What if everything you thought you knew about this case was carefully orchestrated to hide the truth? Today we're diving into the Amy Bradley mystery, and I'm going to show you evidence that will change everything you believe about this case. Because buried in Reddit forums, hidden from mainstream media, lies what could be the most damning evidence yet. Evidence that proves Amy Bradley was human trafficked. March 24th, 1998. The Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas was making its way through Caribbean waters toward Curaçao. Amy Bradley, a 23-year-old college graduate from Virginia, was enjoying what should have been a relaxing family vacation with her parents Ron and Iva and her brother Brad. Amy was no ordinary young woman. She was a former college basketball player on a full scholarship, a trained lifeguard, and an excellent swimmer. She was strong, capable, and street smart. The night before her disappearance, Amy had been dancing at the ship's nightclub with members of the ship's band, Blue Orchid. Security footage shows her spending considerable time with the bass player, Alistair Douglas, known by his stage name Yellow. The two were seen dancing, talking, and appearing to enjoy each other's company. But what happened next would spark decades of investigation, conspiracy theories, and cover-ups. At 5:30 a.m. on March 24th, Amy's father Ron briefly saw her sleeping on their cabin's balcony. When he checked again at 6:00 a.m., she was gone. The only items missing from the room were her cigarettes and lighter. No shoes, no identification, no money. It was as if she had stepped out for a quick smoke and simply vanished into thin air. The ship's crew initially delayed announcing Amy's disappearance, claiming it was too early to alert passengers. By the time they made the announcement asking Amy to report to the purser's desk, most passengers had already disembarked in Curaçao. This crucial delay would later become a point of major controversy. But here's where the story takes a disturbing turn. According to Amy's brother Brad, shortly after Amy's disappearance was discovered, Alistair Douglas approached him on the pool deck and said, "Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister." The problem? At that time, only the captain and the Bradley family knew about Amy's disappearance. No announcement had been made. How did Douglas know? The official investigation yielded nothing. The Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search of the surrounding waters. No trace of Amy was found. Authorities initially speculated that she had fallen overboard and drowned, but this theory quickly fell apart. Amy was a strong swimmer and former lifeguard. The ship was close to shore, and there was no evidence whatsoever that she had gone overboard. Then came the sightings. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a woman matching Amy's description in various Caribbean locations. A taxi driver in Curaçao claimed to have seen her on the day she disappeared. A retired Navy seaman named William Hefner reported that 10 months after her disappearance, a woman approached him at a brothel in Curaçao, identified herself as Amy Bradley, and pleaded for help, claiming she had been kidnapped and was being held against her will. If you're finding this case as mind-blowing as I am, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're about to uncover some information that will completely change how you see this entire mystery. In 2005, the Bradley family received what would become the most disturbing piece of evidence in the entire case: an anonymous email containing photographs of a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Amy. The photos showed a woman in her underwear, appearing distressed and disoriented on what appeared to be an adult website. The woman in the photos had tattoos that matched Amy's distinctive markings, including a Tasmanian devil tattoo on her shoulder. But while the family clung to hope that Amy was alive somewhere, they were about to become victims of one of the most cruel and calculated scams in missing person case history. In 1999, a man named Frank Jones contacted the Bradley family, claiming to be a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer with connections to elite military units. Jones convinced the desperate family that Amy was being held by armed Colombian guards in a compound in Curaçao, and that his team of ex-Navy SEALs and Army Rangers could rescue her. Jones provided the family with detailed updates, fake photographs, and even claimed his operatives had eyes on Amy. He described her tattoos accurately and even referenced a lullaby that Amy's mother used to sing to her as a child. The grieving family, desperate for any hope, paid Jones over $200,000, including $24,144 of their personal savings and $186,416 from the National Missing Children's Organization. The rescue mission never happened. There was no team. There was no Amy under surveillance. Frank Jones was a fraud who preyed on a family's desperation. In 2002, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for mail fraud. But the damage was done. The Bradley family had been financially and emotionally devastated by someone who exploited their pain for profit. Meanwhile, the case took another bizarre turn when the family decided to sue Royal Caribbean for negligence. But here's what most people don't know about those lawsuits. They were dismissed in 2000, not because the cruise line was innocent, but because the Bradley family was found to have committed perjury in court. The family claimed they had only received 3 eyewitness reports of Amy after her disappearance, and that all 3 witnesses said she appeared to be under duress. This was a lie. Court records reveal that there had been over 100 reported sightings of Amy, with the majority suggesting she had left the cruise ship voluntarily. The family had cherry-picked evidence to support their narrative while hiding contradictory accounts. Now, 27 years later, Netflix has released a documentary series called Amy Bradley is Missing. But according to critics and investigators, the documentary deliberately omits crucial information that doesn't fit the family's preferred narrative. They left out the Frank Jones scam entirely. They glossed over the perjury allegations. They ignored the contradictory witness statements. Why would Netflix, a platform known for thorough investigative documentaries, suddenly become so selective with the facts? Recently, Alistair Douglas, the bass player who was one of the last people to see Amy alive, gave a rare interview. He's now living in Grenada, working as a reverend and exorcist, running a small church. He maintains his innocence and claims he voluntarily took a polygraph test during the initial investigation. But questions remain about how he knew Amy was missing before any announcement was made. But here's where things get really interesting. In 2025, a Reddit user posted what they claim is conclusive proof of what really happened to Amy Bradley. According to this detailed account, Amy had spent the evening drinking 7 beers and dancing with Douglas. The user claims that Amy, despite having no history of drug use, decided that a family cruise would be the perfect time to experiment with drugs. The Reddit post suggests that Amy arranged to meet Douglas at 5:30 a.m. to go ashore and purchase drugs when the ship docked in Curaçao. But instead of a simple drug transaction, Douglas allegedly had connections to human traffickers on the island who were waiting to abduct Amy. The post describes how Amy was taken to Barbados, given plastic surgery to alter her appearance, had her tattoos removed, and was forced into prostitution. The user points out several suspicious elements. Why would Amy meet so early in the morning, hours before the ship was scheduled to dock? How did Douglas contact traffickers between 3:30 a.m. when he returned to his cabin and 5:30 a.m. when he met Amy? Why didn't Douglas's roommate notice him leaving the cabin? How did the traffickers coordinate such an elaborate kidnapping with only 2 hours' notice? Yet despite these logical inconsistencies, the Reddit post argues that the evidence still points to human trafficking. The post suggests that Amy was spotted talking to a taxi driver in Curaçao, confirming she made it to the island. It explains the year-long gap before the first confirmed sighting by suggesting the traffickers needed time to alter Amy's appearance through surgery and tattoo removal. The post even addresses the infamous website photos from 2005, suggesting that traffickers deliberately made Amy look older in the photos despite the fact that she would have only been in her mid-20s at the time. Here's what makes this Reddit analysis so compelling. It addresses every major piece of evidence in the case while acknowledging the logical problems with the trafficking theory. It points out that finding a cruise ship musician dancing with a female passenger is about as common as finding a hamburger at Wendy's. It notes that the bass player's behavior wasn't particularly suspicious, given that musicians on cruise ships are literally there for the attention and social interaction. But if you're still with me on this incredible journey, smash that like button because we're about to reveal the most shocking part of this entire case. The Reddit user makes a crucial point that law enforcement and media have consistently ignored. If Amy Bradley was human trafficked, it required an elaborate conspiracy involving cruise ship staff, international criminal organizations, and corrupt officials in multiple countries. But if Amy Bradley simply fell overboard after drinking 7 beers and leaning over the ship's railing to vomit, it requires no conspiracy at all. Amy was 5'7" tall. Standing on a table or chair to lean over the railing would put her center of gravity well above the safety barrier. A fall from that height into the ocean at night would be virtually impossible to survive, even for a strong swimmer. The current and darkness would make recovery of a body extremely unlikely. But here's the million-dollar question. Why has this simple explanation been consistently rejected in favor of increasingly elaborate conspiracy theories? Why do documentaries, podcasts, and news reports continue to focus on human trafficking when the evidence is largely circumstantial? The answer might be more disturbing than the trafficking theory itself. Missing person cases involving young, attractive women generate massive media attention and public interest. Families receive donations, reward money, and ongoing support from the public. Documentary producers get compelling content. Law enforcement agencies get funding for international investigations. But if Amy Bradley simply fell overboard in a tragic accident, all of that attention, money, and resources disappear overnight. There's no villain to catch, no victim to rescue, no conspiracy to unravel. Just a heartbroken family and a terrible accident. The FBI still maintains an active investigation into Amy Bradley's disappearance, offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to her recovery. But after 27 years, no credible evidence of human trafficking has emerged. No traffickers have been arrested. No concrete proof of Amy's survival has been found. Recent legal experts suggest that the renewed attention from the Netflix documentary could potentially lead to the case being reopened, but only if new credible evidence emerges. The problem is that after nearly 3 decades, the likelihood of finding reliable witnesses or physical evidence has diminished significantly. So what really happened to Amy Bradley? Was she the victim of an elaborate human trafficking conspiracy involving international criminal organizations? Or was she simply a young woman who had too much to drink and made a tragic mistake that cost her life? The Reddit analysis suggests that the truth lies somewhere in between. It acknowledges that human trafficking is a real and serious problem in the Caribbean, but questions whether the Amy Bradley case actually fits that pattern. It points out that successful human trafficking operations typically target vulnerable individuals with fewer resources and less public attention, not college-educated Americans on high-profile family vacations. The post also raises questions about the reliability of eyewitness testimony in high-profile cases. When a missing person case receives massive media coverage and offers substantial reward money, the number of reported sightings typically increases dramatically. But the vast majority of these sightings turn out to be cases of mistaken identity or people seeking attention. As we reach the end of this investigation, one thing becomes clear. The Amy Bradley case has become less about finding the truth and more about maintaining a narrative that serves various interests. Families want hope, media wants content, law enforcement wants funding, and in the middle of all this, the real Amy Bradley, whatever happened to her, gets lost. But here's what we know for certain. Amy Bradley was a real person with real dreams and aspirations. She was loved by her family and friends, and whether she died in a tragic accident or became a victim of human trafficking, she deserves better than to have her story exploited for entertainment or profit. The case remains officially unsolved, but after 27 years, the window for finding concrete answers continues to narrow. What started as a missing person case has evolved into a cultural phenomenon that says more about our society's fascination with mysterious disappearances than it does about what actually happened to Amy Bradley. If this deep dive into the Amy Bradley case has opened your eyes to how media narratives can overshadow facts, make sure you subscribe for more content that challenges conventional wisdom and digs deeper into the stories that shape our world. Because sometimes the most important truth is the one nobody wants to hear. The Amy Bradley case will likely remain a mystery forever. But perhaps that's exactly what some people want.